Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host on Mondays, on Thursdays, as usual, Casey Foreman. Thank you for tuning in to my first episode of the week here at GSMC. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome in, guys. A whole lot to break down, to discuss today on a Monday. Wow, what a weekend it was for basketball, and I am expecting it to be an even bigger week with what we have in store for us. Yes, we have the draft, the start of free agency, the start of trades being acceptable. So yes, a whole lot is going to go down basically in the next 7 days. So pay attention, keep Woj on refresh on whatever social media you have him. He's going to be, for the most part, him, Shams, they're going to be bringing it to you as soon as they find it out, and they're pretty much the first ones to those stories usually. So a whole lot is expected to go down in the next week. Like I said, so much is going on in basketball. There's tons of updates on the season, on next season, starting on December 22nd, opening night. Now we officially know that will be opening night, December 22nd. Tons of trade talks and rumors going on. The Lakers are pretty much have Dennis Schröder locked up for the 28th pick in this year's draft, and Danny Green, who is supposedly going elsewhere. So Lakers getting Dennis Schröder, a much needed third scoring option. Hardin, Westbrook, we know there's been rumors about them. Westbrook, maybe the Knicks, the Clippers, Charlotte. I know Hardin saying he wants to stick it out in Houston as of now, but I don't think it's always up to the player. When the player wants to stay, though, I think that is usually the route you should take. But either way, rumors of him possibly wanting to go to Brooklyn, team up with KD, Kyrie, and possibly Philly being interested with Daryl Morey. So a lot going on as far as trades in the NBA right now. Lakers having Dennis Schröder pretty much locked up, though, it seems like. Also, though, at the end of the podcast, my final segment, about 40 minutes in, probably 30 minutes in or so, I want to start talking about, I want to discuss the draft on Wednesday night, what I expect from the draft, some 15, 10 to 15 odd picks, what I expect from those, and then, for the rest of the draft, what I expect. So a lot to break down, some trades I think that just might happen as well, where some big players might end up, and just discussing Wednesday night. I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys are as well. So a lot to talk about, discussing the Lakers getting Dennis Schröder, Hardin going to Brooklyn, a preview of Wednesday night for us. But again, so much going on in the world of basketball. December 22nd, like I said, opening night, that is official. We also know it's official as far as preseason goes. There will be a preseason for the NBA. I know I said in my last podcast already, we already knew there was going to be a preseason, but now we know it's going to be 3 to 4 games. Teams can choose if they want to play 3 or 4. Teams can also choose who they want to play, who they want to warm up with, if you will. So I like it. I like them playing 3 or 4 games, getting warmed up before opening night. Training camps, I believe, are starting as early as December 1st. That is the date date that has been thrown out there. So teams are going to get almost a month or so of training camps, at least 3 weeks, and multiple games in before the start of the season. So I like it. We also have more dates being released as far as All-Star break. So March 5th through 10th is going to be the quote All-Star break, giving them almost a whole week off. No All-Star game as of now, which is sad, but there will still be an All-Star break, All-Star voting, all that jazz. May 16th will be the end of the regular season. May 17th, maybe through the 22nd, 21st, will be the play-in tournament. I know that isn't 100% agreed upon. The Board of Governors are still voting on that. They're still agreeing if they want to implement that going forward. I think it's a great idea. I loved it last year. It got Portland into that 8th seed. It secured them into that 8th seed. It also gave Memphis a chance to hold on and get back that 8th seed that they had for such a long time. So I like it. It also gives, teams chances who might have been hurt, might have had a better stretch at the end of the season. They then go head to head. Who is the better team to get ultimately beat by the 2 and 1 seed? But you never know. We saw the Dallas Mavericks in the 7th seed go 6 games with the 2nd seed Clippers, so you never know. We've seen a number 8 seed upset a number 1 seed before, so you never know. And ultimately that is getting the best team possible in that seed. So that is ultimately going to be around May 17th, the end of the regular season. And then after that, maybe around May 25th, the official start date of the postseason. And you can estimate then from there that the finals should be starting around July 8th, July 10th, maybe a little July 5th. Kind of depends on when that postseason starts, when that play-in tournament, how long that play-in tournament takes and stuff. But ultimately around July 8th is the estimated start date of the finals. And like I said, Monday the 16th today will be, well, tomorrow. I'm recording this on Sunday, but still, when this comes out, is the official start date of trades being accepted in the NBA. So that leads me to my first topic, obviously with the Lakers trading for Dennis Schröder. But again, the 16th, Monday, trades being started. Wednesday's the draft, and then Friday, free agency starts, and then I think Sunday after that, people can officially put pen on paper and sign the contract. So tons is gonna, a lot is gonna go down in the next 7 days. Super excited to be reporting here for you here at GSMC, and I'll make sure to keep you guys posted as soon as I know. You guys are gonna know as well. Make sure you go follow us on Twitter, because again, I'm posting on there, and I'll make sure to keep you guys as posted, as updated as I know. You will know as well. But let's get in to today's episode. A whole lot to break down and discuss. The Lakers, like I said, trading for Dennis Schröder. Wow. Okay, wow is all I can say. Woj is the other thing I can say. Wow, he always knows, right? Either way, Woj reporting advanced talks from Los Angeles, from Oklahoma City for, the 6th man of the year candidate, Dennis Schröder. LA reportedly will send Danny Green and the 28th overall pick in this year's draft to Oklahoma City, the Thunder, for, the 19 point a night, 4 assists, 38, I think, percentage from the 3 he shoots. So definitely worth it. You're risking, in this draft, especially if it was a really great, and there are 20 great guys, which never happens. I say, hold on to that pick. Trade up and get into, but in this year's draft, where LA is, this is a great move for them. Trading that 20th pick, a guy in Danny Green, who is an inconsistent shooter at times, but still a veteran, has had great moments for Los Angeles, and is a 3-time champ now. So Oklahoma, I think they will have other plans for Danny Green, like I said earlier, but they're getting the 28th pick, adding to their collection of draft picks that the Oklahoma City Thunder are. We know with Westbrook, Paul George as well. So we know what they've gotten in return. That they've gotten draft picks, and they're adding to their collection here, getting a draft pick for a player and shooter. And then, like I said, Los Angeles is adding a very good player. Before this, I really haven't heard anything about Schröder going to Los Angeles. This is kind of coming out of the blue for me, at least. I know what I've been seeing before that was maybe Chris Paul going there. They had high hopes of Bradley Beal Beal. I think both of those might have been a little bit of a pipe dream. But again, there was talk of CP3 to LA. But again, this is surprising, but it makes a whole lot of sense. More than likely, what I'm guessing is, Los Angeles realized they couldn't get Chris Paul, and if they did want to get Chris Paul, maybe it would take a little bit more than what they wanted to. So since they were already in talks, they're like, hey, what about Dennis Schröder? Hey, what about that 28th pick you got in Danny Green? We'll try to flip him for a second pick or for some cash or something. So, it makes sense for Oklahoma City. I mean, I'm guessing they were already talking about Chris Paul. And then, you know what? Dennis Schröder comes up in Los Angeles. Like, yo, that's a very good player. We could definitely need him. More than likely, like I said, Phoenix or Milwaukee probably could offer Oklahoma a little bit of a better package for CP3. I think also that had something to do with it. Don't think Chris Paul isn't on the move. He's definitely going somewhere. My two best guesses is either Phoenix or Milwaukee. We'll see. I think Phoenix can probably get a better, but we'll see. Can Milwaukee, add a couple of picks, which I don't care about losing as long as they can keep a guy in Giannis. So that's what I would do if I was Milwaukee. Give up Eric Bledsoe if they want him. Give up, picks if they want him. Either way, Phoenix might have a better package. Phoenix or Milwaukee probably beat Los Angeles to the punch. Then I don't want to say settle for Dennis Schröder. Still a very, very good player. And then, like I said, Schröder, in my opinion, he deserved the Sixth Man of the Year award in this past year, in this past awards season, if you will. Montrezl Harrell, who had a disappointing end to his postseason, so did Lou Will. They both had bad stretches in the Orlando bubble, weren't 100% committed. And then seeing Dennis Schröder go to the bench, okay, he was being led also by a guy like Chris Paul, the trio of guards with Gilgeous-Alexander to Chris Paul and then Schröder, that had to do with it a little bit. But either way, he goes to the bench, becomes the leader of the second unit somewhat, and then thrives in that role. Like I said, averaging 19 points and 4 assists, 38% from the three-point line. So, in my opinion, he was deserving of the Sixth Man of the Year award, beating out Lou Will, even beating out Montrezl Harrell. So I think he was somewhat snubbed of that award. And now, since the Lakers are, my whole point to this is the Lakers are getting this guy. They're getting their own Lou Will, if you will. Now, like we said, for the Clippers, a big thing going for them. They have two stars, in the starting lineup, and then a star, if you will, almost in Lou Will coming off the bench. Now the Lakers have pretty much the same thing in AD, LeBron in the starting lineup, and then more than likely, I'm guessing with how he is now in his career, him thriving coming off the bench last year in Oklahoma City, the Lakers now are getting a younger Lou Will, if you will. So a great move. They're getting a guy to come off, lead the second unit, a third scoring option, so a great move. The Lakers, they don't necessarily have a starting point guard, so it's possible that Schröder does get into that starting point guard role, but again, seeing what he did in Oklahoma City last year, it only makes sense for him to be the Lou Will for them, come off the bench when LeBron goes to the bench. Not all the times, but and then he can lead the unit. They don't always rely on AD to stay in. He can go in and get you instant offense, instant point, and still create for others at times. So, great move. But it would make more sense, like I said, for him and then Kuzma. Don't forget Kuzma. They still are holding on to him as of now, not trading him as of now, right? So him and Kuzma both come off of the bench. You get a guy averaging 19, 4, 38% off the bench. Kuz, who averaged like 12 to 13 points off the bench this year. So that is a very good combo to come in when AD and LeBron are off. Kuzma and Dennis Schröder come in. That's a very good 2-punch to come off of your bench. I think if you can keep Kuzma, if you do decide to keep Kuzma, at least unless you can get a guy like, I don't know, if Indiana loves him or something like that. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how high his stock is. If the Spurs will take him for DeRozan, I'm not sure. I don't know how high his stock is necessarily. Either way, he can come in, lead the second unit, and again, this is the exact move Los Angeles needed to make. They get a guy to knock down 3-pointers, to create offense for himself. The whole Chris Paul thing, Bradley Beal thing, I think, was a little bit out of reach. Those guys are really good. Their contracts are really big, though, and I didn't really see that making a whole lot of sense. Also brings, like I said, the much-needed third scoring option. That was the biggest question for this Laker roster this past season. Will Kuzma stand up and be the third option? It seems like, Caldwell Pope, Rondo, Avery Bradley, Kuzma, they all stepped up on given Danny Green. They all stepped up on given nights and were that third option. Now they officially have a third guy, a guy to say, hey, give it to Dennis. He's going to go shoot a three, go ISO, go get a bucket. So they now have a guy like that. And also consistent, like I said, consistent 3-point shooting. They did not have that last year. They did have 3-point shooting. Contavious, Caldwell Pope, Danny Green, Bradley. They can all knock down some 3-point shots. But they all have one thing going against them, and that is inconsistency. One thing with Dennis Schröder, a consistent 38% from the floor. I know Los Angeles had maybe around that number as well, but still, he's a consistent three-point shooter. You can score off the dribble, off the pass as well. A catch and shoot guy as well. He can be. So with this Laker team that was led by LeBron James in 3-point shooting last year, not terrible, right? LeBron's not a terrible 3-point shooter. Oh man, I just went over my 15-minute mark, guys. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, we'll continue on. A quick break though, guys. Coming back, still discussing Dennis Schröder to the Lakers. I'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back, guys. Like I've been saying, let's continue on. The Lakers acquiring Dennis Schröder for the 28th pick for Danny Green. So, like I said, for this Los Angeles Laker team, they were led by LeBron James in 3-point shooting, a decent 3-point shooter, a good 3-point shooter, not a guy who should be leading your roster in 3-pointers. He led the Lakers in 3-pointers last year, not great. Adding a guy in Dennis Schröder now who can add to that, like I said, who can knock it down. LeBron now has a guy who more consistently he can pass to, he can kick out to at that 3-point line to knock down a wide open 3-point shot. He's also going to get the most, the most wide open shots he's ever had in his career playing next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Okay, that is always a factor with this. So that is a huge factor. They're getting 3-pointers. They're getting a consistent third option. They obviously still need to improve the roster. Small pieces here, small pieces there. But overall, in my opinion, this team, I think getting Dennis Schröder via trade solves a lot of issues for them. The offense will not be so dependent on LeBron and Anthony Davis, but especially on LeBron as he gets older and older. It's more important they get more of these offensive pieces to create for themselves and others, so that's very important. It becomes less dependent on LeBron and Anthony Davis all of the time. And he's a point guard, so he's going to have the ball in his hands as well. So that's good to hear. The less time, obviously LeBron is going to have the ball in his hands all the time, but if he doesn't have to have it all the time, that's a good thing. He's going to rest a little bit more. That is a good thing longevity-wise. all things considered, that is good. So that is good. They are addressing a lot of their concerns. Only thing for Dennis, not too much of a defensive player is he. I wouldn't call him a liability by any means. Almost averages a steal per game. But not a great defender, not a bad defender by any means. I think it's a matter of effort, and if he puts in the effort, I think he will do just fine. So overall, he addresses a lot of concerns for them. And as far as Oklahoma City, right? As far as Oklahoma City goes, they're gonna get. Listen to this. In the next 6 years, I did my research on this. In the next, not that I don't always, right? But either way, in the next 6 years, Oklahoma City Thunder, if they get the 28th pick from Los Angeles, they will have 24 picks in the next 6 years. Usually people have maybe a first-round pick and a second-round pick. That's what they get usually, okay? A first-round pick and a second-round. Then whatever you trade, you can get more. So maybe 2 per year. Maybe they should have half that on average, 12 or so, right? They have double what the average should be in the next 6 years. They have 24 draft picks in the next 6 years. Again, if they do get Los Angeles' 28th pick, 12, directly half will be in the next 3 years. So it'll be 12 and 12 in the next 3 years. So 12 in the next 3 years, and then they're still not done. They've got 24 picks in the next 6 years, and then they're still not done. They still have pieces to move. And picks to acquire. They still have Chris Paul. They have Chris Paul, who is obviously getting multiple teams calling about him, wanting him. So Chris Paul, who's gonna bring in at least another first-round pick and then more. So Chris Paul, who's gonna get them another first-round picker and then more, probably because he's deserving of so, right? So Chris Paul is gonna get more. Steven Adams as well. So they have Steven Adams, who we know with the contract he has, another team is needing size. Maybe the Clippers, maybe the Celtics. I'm not sure who will pull the trigger on getting him, who needs size, but he will be wanted, a defensive piece as well. He can score at times, not much of an offensive piece, but he can score at times. He can, get some offensive, put the ball back in after an offensive rebounder. So he's really good on the glass, offensive and defensive side, and is very good just defense as a post presence. He's very good as a shot blocker. He's very good. So Steven Adams, I think they'll get something for him, and then Chris Paul will obviously a hot commodity right now. You're going to get a decent amount of stuff for Chris Paul. So 24 picks plus whatever they get for CP3 and Steven Adams. Hell, they might even have 26, 27 first-round picks, or just 27 picks in general in the next 6 years, and they might even have 15 in the next 3 years if they get a lot of recent picks in the coming years. So, man, Oklahoma City Thunder being led by Sam Presti is doing one heck of a job right now. Props, my hats is being taken off. Props to you, sir. Hats off to you. You're doing a heck of a job, doing a great job at rebuilding that roster post Russell Westbrook, post Kevin Durant. We've seen teams after having their two all-time type players be absolutely terrible for the next decade or so, and be in terrible position going forward. Cleveland, after losing LeBron, they're not looking to be. They're the 5th pick, but still, really, what are they going forward? And then the Bulls after losing Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, what have they been? They've had an MVP in Derrick Rose, no real championship contention though, and honestly, again, for a team that just lost a guy like Kevin Durant, a guy like Russell Westbrook in recent years, and now they have 24 picks in the next 6 years, and more that will be added on to it. Sam Presti has done a great job in Oklahoma City Thunder, and again, moving a guy like Dennis Schröder to your team right now, not a whole lot of worth. He's worth more to a team like Los Angeles. Might as well get another first-round pick for him, add to your asset list. And then another guy I want to shout out, Rob Palinka for Los Angeles, a guy who gets a lot of hate, I feel like. And I understand why, but I think he's done good. He's been doing really well over the past couple of years since he's been in charge, since Magic stepped down. I think he's done a great job that they've won a championship. So, yes, obviously he's doing well, and he's staying busy even after winning a championship. He is staying busy, and I think this trade helps both teams. Like I said, Los Angeles gets a third option, which they desperately need, and then, Oklahoma City Thunder continues to add to their list of assets. And then, like I said, as far as salaries go for Oklahoma City and for Danny Green and for Dennis Schröder, they're basically the exact same, around 14, 15 million. So they match. So this trade makes nothing but sense. They're going to get a pick in return, flip Danny Green, maybe get a little bit of something in return for him. So it makes nothing but sense for both parties in that sense. Maybe now we can put the whole DeRozan to the Laker thing to rest. I'm not quite sure. Maybe now they use Kuzma, since they didn't have to use Kuzma. They trade Kuzma and a future pick perhaps for DeRozan to add even more scoring. I'm not quite sure. You don't want to blow it up. Maybe in my opinion, Schröder might be the only bigger piece that you need. Now you simply add to your depth. Go get a guy like Wesley Matthews. Go get keep JaVale McGee. Try to keep a guy like Rajon Rondo, but if he's too expensive, you can let him go if you're getting a guy like Dennis Schröder. So keep guys. Go get a guy like Wesley Matthews. If I don't want to say Serge Ibaka is going to be too expensive. I think he'll go probably more Warriors or Celtics or something like that. Clippers maybe even, but either way, both parties, it makes sense here. Okay, makes sense. Maybe now we can put the whole DeRozan thing to bed, and maybe now, in my opinion, Los Angeles has basically all that they need to continue to compete for championships now. Adding Dennis Schröder definitely puts them in a better place to go back to back. They now have an official third option, a guy who can lead them in three-point shooting, who can lead the second unit. So definitely, like I said, it works out for both parties, for both teams in Oklahoma City and Los Angeles. A lot of rumors going on right now. I did like the whole DeRozan thing. I like this better. Overall, like I said, a very good trade for Los Angeles. They got exactly what they needed. Will this send Rajon Rondo to the Clippers now, since they now have a six-man or a point guard coming off the bench? Will Rajon Rondo stay and be the official starting guy, for Dennis to come in and replace, or will this send Rondo right to the Clippers? What other changes are coming for Los Angeles and Oklahoma City, if any? I'm expecting this to not only be the only move coming for both of these. Again, this is the biggest move Los Angeles needs to make. However, it's not the only move. And then, like I said, Oklahoma City, expect things to come for them going forward. Chris Paul is definitely going to get a first-round pick or so. Steven Adams as well. You hold on to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a young, getting better all-star caliber player. So you hold on to him and you start building pieces around him and continue to get better, continue to add to your asset list if you're Oklahoma City Thunder. But they aren't the only teams, Los Angeles and Oklahoma. They aren't the only teams in trade talks right now. They aren't the only teams I want to discuss. There's a whole lot to talk. I want to take a quick break in about a minute or two, but quickly, let's get a quick preview on what I want to discuss after the break. After the midway point of the show today. Hardin, like I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, Hardin, who knows what's going on in Houston? Obviously, we hear Russell Westbrook either going the Clippers, the Knicks. Charlotte's been thrown out there. I think he'll end up going more to either the Knicks or a Charlotte caliber team. Not really the Clippers is what I'm expecting here. I don't know why the Clippers. I think they're getting worse if they trade Paul George for him. Either way, with his co-star being out, James Harden, obviously there's question now as far as his future there. Both him and Westbrook have had doubts and question as far as what the future is in Houston, what the direction they are taking now. So if they trade Westbrook, what does that mean for James Harden? Will he go and join? As far as Woj has been so active over the last couple of days. I love when Woj has his Twitter fingers going on. When he's tweeting, when he has a lot pumping and going on. It is good for me. It's good for the world of basketball. It's good for the GSMC basketball podcast. So what I saw from him the most recently is that at the top of James Harden's list, as far as if he does get traded, I know he does want to stay in Houston as of now, but if he does get traded, at the top of his list, what would you expect? Yeah. The Brooklyn Nets, okay? He is, as far as we know, according to Woj, looking to go to Brooklyn, team up, reunite with his former teammate in Oklahoma City, which obviously Kevin Durant, and then team up with Kyrie Irving as well, forming a big three of sorts. Is it worth it for Brooklyn giving up? They would have to give up so much, all of their depth, all of their assets. They would all go to the former MVP. But is it worth it to form that big three with those three caliber players together? That is what I want to discuss next. Does it make sense for the Knicks? For the Nets? Does it make sense for Houston as far as what they can offer? Are there better packages out there? Is Westbrook bound to be traded one way or another? Is there a reboot coming in Houston? I want to take a quick break. All of that, though, is coming after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back, guys. Like I said before the break, let's continue on and discuss James Harden putting the Brooklyn Nets at the top of his list for possible trade targets, for possible teams if he does end up being traded, possible trade destinations. So, with all the trade rumors going on, involving Russell Westbrook, it only makes sense for us to look at his co-star in James Harden and say, it only makes sense for his co-star in James Harden to look around and for us to look around, to be vigilant, and for all of us to plan for the future, us and James Harden. Harden has also come out and said he does prefer to stay in Houston. The Rockets, he likes where he is. He wants to continue on and try to win a championship. What he came and started, he wants to finish that out and try to win, continue on in Houston. That is his preference. But if he was traded, he did apparently somehow Woj knows this information, so somehow someone knows this information. But if he was somehow, some way to be traded from Houston, if they did start taking phone calls on James Harden, apparently Brooklyn is Harden's preferred destination. Brooklyn is where James wants to go. And it's looking like Houston will move Russ, maybe New York, Charlotte. The Clippers have been thrown out there. I'm not sure who else is in the Russell Westbrook sweepstakes, quite frankly, and I really don't think a team that is competing right now will take a chance on a guy like that. I think more than likely it'll be a team like a Charlotte, like a New York, that'll take a chance on him because maybe like a Detroit, who knows, that takes a chance on him because they're not really relevant, and getting a guy like that might make them a little relevant on, say, a Tuesday or Thursday night when they're playing, and they wouldn't ordinarily get viewers like that when ordinarily, you have Terry Rozier at the point guard position instead of Russell Westbrook. So yes, obviously that's an upgrade for your organization, getting you relevant once again, New York and Charlotte. So it makes sense in that sense. Doesn't really make sense for a lot of teams like the Clippers. I don't even know what other winning team would want a guy like Russell Westbrook. I haven't always been a big fan of Westbrook. I thought he was playing really good, towards the end of the season, before the hiatus and such. I thought he was playing very, very well. Right after they traded Clint Capella, he was averaging like 35 points, triple-double near. So he was playing great. Through stretches, through the regular season. However, in the postseason, towards the end of the regular season, through the bubble and such, I was disappointed. I saw what I usually see out of him, and ultimately, again, I'm selling my stock on Russell Westbrook if I ever even had any. And obviously, with Russell getting traded away from Houston, not having that duo of James Harden and Russell Westbrook, the two former MVPs paired together, just maybe James, and then we know whatever you get in return for Russ won't be a great piece. It won't be a Russell Westbrook former MVP caliber piece, right? Whoever gives up the MVP player usually doesn't get that in return, honestly, usually at least. So whatever they get back, it's just going to be Harden and whatever they get back, and that isn't usually, in my opinion, that is not going to be enough, to compete for a championship, to compete for a title. Probably, at least. I mean, maybe it's addition by subtraction, and it's just the James Harden show, but we've seen the James Harden show, and we know that doesn't necessarily pan out either. So they're not necessarily going to be competing for titles with Russ or without Russ, really. And like I said, both Harden and Westbrook have both voiced their concerns about, where are we going? Where is the future of this franchise heading? Because quite frankly, we don't know. You just fired our head coach, our GM just left, or, both of them just left, at least, quote, quote, fired. So where are we going? We haven't heard anything. The roster isn't necessarily getting any better. We're kind of stuck. No moves are really being made. So what's going on? Okay, where are we going? Both Russ and Harden have said that, have both voiced concerns. Whatever they get, like I said, in return of Westbrook won't be a great piece. So Credit to Kendrick Perkins. Credit to Kendrick Perkins. This is the first guy I ever, I heard saying this, and that is James Harden might end up in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant, with Kyrie Irving. That was ultimately, in my mind, crazy and impossible. There's no way, there's no chance of that happening, I was thinking weeks ago. After now hearing these stories coming out, Russell Westbrook probably getting traded, then in just a one-man show, one-man band once again in Houston. We know how that goes. So ultimately, will we see them moving on? That is what we're talking about. And Kendrick Perkins said a little bit ago, a couple days ago, if not a week ago, that he expects them, or he expects Houston and Brooklyn to talk, and Brooklyn to make a push for the former MVP. So credit to Kendrick Perkins. Credit where it is due. Perhaps the reboot is inevitable for Houston. And of course, Harden wants to go to Brooklyn. Okay, Harden wants to go to Brooklyn. So what does that mean? But he said he wants to stay in Houston. So why would he even say a team? I don't know. Maybe he's just saying, if you trade me here. Either way, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking, looking at all these signs that are coming, I think a reboot is coming for the Houston Rockets. We've seen the best. That cap space is tied up, is locked up. Not too much that team can do. They're going to be trying to get rid of the Russell Westbrook contract, but ultimately, who's going to want to take that up? They're going to have to take something back in return as well. So, who knows? That team is not in great position going forward. And as far as winning championships right now, I don't think they're in any position. Maybe they can be a decent team in the West because of James Harden, how good he is. But this is not a championship team anymore. And I think ultimately it might be time to reboot it. And of course, hearing Harden saying he wants to go to Brooklyn, KD, Kyrie, James Harden, would that be the new Golden State Warriors in a way when you think about it? Two former MVPs who teamed up in Steph and Kevin Durant. I think I'm more of a Steph guy than a James Harden guy myself, but Kyrie and then Klay Thompson, those are pretty close players, right? I'm more of a Klay guy myself when it comes to it as well, but ultimately, that's a pretty close. They don't have a Draymond, right? There's no, but still, ultimately, man, that's a pretty damn good team, and that is probably the best team in the league. 2 former MVPs in KD and in James Harden, and then Kyrie Irving. So yes, but ultimately, there's only one ball. How is that going to work? But talent-wise, they look like the best team in the league. But don't worry, NBA fans. It's not. Don't think, oh my gosh, it's definitely going to happen. James Harden is going to Brooklyn, and the league is ruined once again. Why should I even watch basketball? I'm just going to turn off this podcast right now. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. Going forward, looking at all things, analyzing all things for Houston. Why would they trade him to Brooklyn? Okay, why would they do such a thing? It does not make any sense whatsoever. And I mean, it makes some sense if no one else wants him, but people are going to want a former MVP in his prime. He's going to be a hot commodity if he's getting shopped around. Obviously, there's going to be more than teams like the Brooklyn, more than just one team out there looking for him. I know there is. I know a team like Philadelphia is looking for a guy like James Harden. So either way, in my opinion, it's not a lock. It's not, James Harden going to Brooklyn, book it. No, not in any way. Don't worry, fans of the NBA. Brooklyn does not have the best package for the former MVP, okay? And honestly, who does have the best package? That's one thing to be analyzed, but, a guy who is now in Philadelphia, who is Daryl Morey, the former GM of the Rockets, obviously loves James Harden, got him to Houston in the first place, now is in Philadelphia. He said publicly, he wants to bring his guy with him. He would love to have a guy like James Harden in Philadelphia. And if I'm Houston, again, props to a guy like I think Chris Broussard from the Odd Couple podcast. I think that's a podcast. I'm not 100% sure. Either way, Chris Broussard, I gotta give props to him. I heard this from him first. The 76ers, perhaps, would they be open if they did want James Harden that bad? And for Houston, it makes a whole lot of sense for them as well. So ultimately, this would be the best package I can even think of as well for Houston. So if I'm Houston, if what is true by Chris Broussard, I trade Harden for Ben Simmons. Okay, it makes all the sense in the world. Obviously a guy who can't shoot. We know how much Morey loves his shooters. Maybe he's tapped out of the whole Harden thing, but with stories coming out that he wants him in Philadelphia, I 100% believe that he is a James Harden guy through and through. And ultimately, it would make a whole lot of sense, I think, for both teams, similar to the OKC and Laker trade. This makes a lot of sense. If the 76ers did pull the trigger, yes, you're losing out on a very young player with tremendous upside, but you're getting an MVP in his prime. Okay, an MVP in his prime. And then you also have, in my opinion, if you do in fact keep Embiid, you have a Shaq Kobe-like duo, in talent and in position-wise. You have, a former MVP in James Harden, an MVP caliber player in Joel Embiid, the best center in the league at times. Definitely has that caliber to him, the potential to him to be that player. We've seen him be that player. So with Harden and Embiid, I think that's a whole Shaq and Kobe thing. And then you still have Tobias Harris, and then you probably have to move the Al Horford contract as well to make it work. But man, Shaq, Kobe, or basically Shaq, Kobe, Harden, Embiid, Tobias Harris, and then obviously you have other moves to make. But man, that makes sense for the 76ers. And then if you're the Houston Rockets, you're trading your two guys, your two MVPs, your franchise players, but you're getting one right back in return. You're getting an all-NBA point guard, an all-star point guard in Ben Simmons. So for the Rockets, you get to rebuild. You get to start the rebuild earlier than expected, I should say, if you're the Rockets, because you get an all-star, all-NBA guy like Ben Simmons, who's already going to get you relevant, who's already going to win you games. So you accelerate the reboot if you're the Rockets, if you trade Hardin to Philly for Ben Simmons instead of whatever Brooklyn can offer. I'll get to that in a second. So it works out for Houston. They get the all-star point guard to build around, and then Houston gets, then Philadelphia, gets the MVP, the Shaq Kobe-like duo in talent, in size, in position. So it makes sense for both parties. You team up Embiid and Harden. You get Ben Simmons alone in Houston and pair him with shooters. It makes sense for me. And then it's the best package available if you're the Houston Rockets. If you are ultimately, rebooting this thing, if it's tapped out and just James Harden by himself isn't going to get it done, and if you're not confident you can build, if I'm Houston, I don't let go of James Harden and I keep him no matter what. But if I am going to move James Harden, I go to Philadelphia, not Brooklyn, and I get Ben Simmons, because as far as what Brooklyn can offer, they can maybe offer me Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, and some future first-round picks, but I'm taking Ben Simmons over LeVert, Dinwiddie, and Allen any day of the week. It would be those three and no one else in Brooklyn. I still think that big three is good enough to win a title. If it is just Harden, KD, and Kyrie, either way, if it is just those three, and then, all the depth is cleared out for the trade, I still think those three guys are good enough to win a title. I know those three guys are good enough to win a title together. They are one injury away from kind of getting the whole team wrecked if that happens, but worth it. If I'm Brooklyn and the Houston Rockets, will take this for James Harden, I pull the trigger. But if I'm Houston, I call Philadelphia if I'm looking to trade James Harden, and I get whatever I can in the trade. I want to take a quick break, you guys. When I come back, finishing up talking about KD and Kyrie, possibly adding James Harden to the mix. And then for the final 10 minutes or so, I'm going to look at this year's 2020 NBA draft. It's finally time. It's on Wednesday. Let you guys know what I think is going to go down, what I think is going to happen. My predictions for the 2020 draft is coming up after the break. But first, like I said, we'll finish up talking about KD, Harden, and Kyrie possibly in Brooklyn. So don't go anywhere, guys. I'm going to be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Like I said, let's now finish up discussing, the whole Harden to Brooklyn rumor. But as far as him going to Brooklyn, real quickly, let's talk about what that would mean for the NBA. That team, in my opinion, is easily the favorite to win the title next year. Right away, they should win the title. They got 2 MVPs, an all-star caliber point guard in Kyrie Irving, Mike D'Antoni, Steve Nash as the coaches, some offensive-minded guys. But I think it is unlikely. I think they Ultimately, I think Houston should get a guy like Ben Simmons in return instead of whatever you could get from Brooklyn, again, LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, and then future first-round picks is probably what they could get. But you can get more. You can get a Ben Simmons caliber guy if you want. If you're Houston, more than likely, in my opinion, we're going to see Harden in a place like Philadelphia in comparison to a place like Brooklyn. Unless Houston is just being the nicest franchise in the entire world in the history of sports, is like, you know what, Harden, we can get a much better player with Ben Simmons in Philadelphia. But if you want to go to Brooklyn, we'll send you to the Nets, okay? You go play with your friends and win a championship. I don't think they're going to be that nice. Really don't think so. Why would they? Okay, not going to happen. But if that's the only chance, in my opinion, he ends up in Brooklyn. But these players are honestly so good, but there's only one ball. Is there enough to go around with offensive-minded coaches like D'Antoni and with Steve Nash? I'm sure they could get it done, but why am I even discussing it some more? Brooklyn does not have the best package. Harden does need to win a title, however, perhaps, again, but going to Philadelphia, I think that's a great way to win a championship as well. So either way, guys, don't get so worried. I'm not really taking this rumor too far. And Woj even came out to say himself, there has been no talk so far. There have been no discussion so far from Houston, from Brooklyn. So no rumors so far. It's simply James Harden saying, nothing but rumors right now. Nothing but James Harden saying, yeah, if I was traded, I maybe want to go there. Okay, so that is the only thing right now. Don't get worried, guys. He's probably going to stay in Houston. I don't see any move coming, honestly. And if he does go anywhere, probably Philadelphia is the way to go. Ultimately, though, if I were a betting man, okay, if I was a betting man, I would bet that he just stays in Houston and tries it out for at least one more year, and we can continue talking about this for a whole another year. Yay. Okay, so let's move on now, like I said, to my final discussion, to my final topic. The NBA draft is on Wednesday. I only left myself 10 to 15 minutes to discuss this now. But either way, let's get right to it. The 2020 draft is officially here on Wednesday. We're a couple of days away, 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. I've been discussing it. Let's jump right into it. What I think is going to go down on Wednesday, the 2020 NBA draft. Number 1 pick overall, Minnesota obviously has it. I think they should hold on to that pick, and I see them drafting Anthony Edwards, quite honest. I know that there's toss-up in the air right now, LaMelo Ball going number 1 overall, Anthony Edwards, are they going to trade the pick? I think they hold on to it ultimately, and they select the guy in Anthony Edwards. I think he fits. He has defensive potential. He can go and score. His percentages do scare me. I've been saying that for a while now. I don't love what I've seen from him shooting the ball, but he can score. He has the size of he has the NBA body, defensive potential. I think he makes sense in Minnesota, and I think he goes number 1 overall. For the number 2 overall pick, I don't think it makes sense for Golden State to hold on to it, to draft a young player and to have to develop a guy unless they're certain this guy will step in and be able to contribute in June, in May, when everything matters most. So unless you're assured that guy can do that, if I'm Golden State, I flip the number 2 overall pick. I call up a team maybe like the New Orleans Pelicans who's shopping a guy like Drew Holiday. I trade that pick. New Orleans can then get a center in James Wiseman. Golden State can get Holiday, perhaps the 13th overall pick. If they could get a guy like Jackson Hayes, you try to get a guy like Jackson Hayes too. Since New Orleans is getting a center in Wiseman, so I think New Orleans gets James Wiseman with a 2nd overall pick. Golden State gets Drew Holiday, and then the 13th overall pick, and New Orleans also gets Andrew Wiggins for the contracts to match up as well. So New Orleans gets Wiggins and James Wiseman, and Golden State gets Holiday in the 13th overall pick. That's what I think should happen at that number 2 overall slot. It might not be that exact move. It should be something like that. The Golden State Warriors trading for an all-star, for a veteran-type player, trading down also, and then a team trading up to get a Wiseman, to get a LaMelo Ball. So that is what should happen with the number 2 overall pick. For number 3, I think Charlotte holds on to that number 3 pick. Don't trade it for Russell Westbrook. Don't try to be relevant. try to continue to get better with these young players who have a high ceiling. Draft LaMelo Ball. If you are the Charlotte Hornets, you hold on to that pick. Don't trade for Russell Westbrook. Draft LaMelo Ball. He's relevant. He's going to get butts in the seats long term, not just for a couple of years. I know Jordan's a Westbrook guy. Westbrook's a Jordan guy. I know you want to sell shoes, all that. But don't sell your future for a short rental. Build for the future. Guys who have high upside, get them to buy in and want to stay in Charlotte. But with the number 3 overall pick, I draft LaMelo Ball. Number four, if I am Chicago, what you are needing is a forward who can spread the floor, who can make plays for others and himself. If I'm Chicago, I am drafting Denny Advija. I'm terrible. Advija, maybe from Israel. Okay, he's a playmaking, scoring wing. He can score again, facilitate. I like him a lot. He might be able to translate right away a Luka Doncic-esque type player, perhaps. So I like him going to Chicago for the number 4th overall pick. They continue to build with younger players, continue to get better. And we've heard Zach LaVine being possibly on the move, so perhaps seeing more moves for Chicago also. But I think if I'm Chicago, I'll hold on to the number 4 pick, draft Advija. Number 5, okay, number 5th overall pick belonging to the Cavaliers. If I am them as well, I hold on to that pick. I draft Obi Toppin from Dayton, Ohio. I draft Obi Toppin. He can score. He's got the NBA body, so good size. I think he will translate relatively soon. I think he'll come in and be able to score at least 14, 15 points a night. So if I'm the Cavs, I go get a forward, a guy who can score, an NBA-ready guy like Obi Toppin. Number 6th overall pick. I think Atlanta, who has the number 6 overall pick, needs to trade it. They need to start winning right now. No time to get another younger player and keep the whole development thing. They have an All-NBA caliber guy like Trae Young, an all-star point guard. Maximize the talent now. Trade the number 6 overall pick, in my opinion, to a team. Maybe not this exact scenario happens, but it's something like this. Trade the number 6 overall pick to a team like San Antonio. Okay, to a team like San Antonio who starts their reboot now after not making the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. You start the reboot if you're San Antonio. You trade DeMar DeRozan to the Atlanta Hawks. You get Onyeka Okongwu from USC. Start the rebuild. Get a very good power forward center who is going to translate relatively soon. Very good, talented player. So the Spurs get him at number 6. Atlanta trades, and they get a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who wants out of San Antonio, who also wants... he goes to a team in Atlanta who needs a veteran guy who can come in, score, somewhat lead in offense, help them win games. DeMar, I think, will come in and help them do that. They need to win games now. In the Eastern Conference as well, what will it hurt? I go out there, I get DeMar DeRozan or his caliber player with the number 6 overall pick if it is available. And if I'm the Spurs, I get Okongwu if I can. And then, like I said, if the Spurs, they free up some cap space, and they also get to start up that rebuild sooner rather than later. At number 7, if I'm the Pistons, a team also rebooting, I go get my franchise point guard, or a guy who could be my franchise point guard, in Killian Hayes. I'm higher on this guy than some other people might be. He's a 6'5" point guard. He can step back and shoot it. He's a lefty, which I like. He's from France, so a European guy. I think he's got high upside. At number 7, I take Killian Hayes if I am the Pistons. Don't go out there and get a power forward or center or something like that. Go out there and get a guy who could have high upside, a scoring guard from France, a European guard who can shoot it, step back and score it, facilitate it. So go and get Killian Hayes if you're Detroit at number 7. At number 8, you couldn't trade the number 8th pick for Russell Westbrook and then trade Julius Randle as well for salary and stuff. That leaves you high and dry for the future. You're simply having Russell Westbrook for a short-term stint. Maybe you have him for the rest of his career, but man, you're trading your career. You're trading your future, I should say. Not even just the number 8th overall pick. Maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic here, and if you can get Westbrook for the pick overall, maybe you'd do it. But honestly, I try to hold on to the number 8th pick and just try to use Randall or so if I'm the Knicks and try to get him. But if I have to, I do it. But if I'm the Knicks, I hold on to the pick, draft Tyrese Halliburton from Iowa State. Point guard, pair him up with R.J. Burton. He can score. So I think I go get him if I'm New York. He's got some upside. You need a point guard as well. If you can get, Russell Westbrook without him, I do so. But if you have to get throw in the pick, and if you need Westbrook, I understand why to become relevant once again, right? So if you want Westbrook, and if it takes the pick, you trade the pick. But if you don't, you draft Halliburton. At number 9, the Wizards should draft Patrick Williams, a combo forward. He can spread the floor. Makes sense for a team like the Wizards. Or maybe you can go a guy like Okoro or something like that from Auburn. Wizards can get a forward who can spread the floor. At number 10, the Suns. Similar position to the Atlanta Hawks. I don't say you continue to rebuild. You use that number 10th pick to get a guy who can help you win right now. If I'm the Suns with that number 10th overall pick, I trade it to Oklahoma City. If I'm Oklahoma City, I continue to add to my collection of draft picks. I trade Chris Paul if I'm Oklahoma City for that 10th overall pick. Oklahoma gets the 10th overall pick. And then whatever else. So they'll probably get, 10th overall pick, Oubre, and then most likely Rubio as well. So and then with the 10th overall pick, I say you select a point guard, a guy with, I think he does have high upside. Had basically no help around him at North Carolina, but if I'm them, I trade Chris Paul for the 10th overall pick. I draft Cole Anthony with the 10th overall pick. I know that might be way too high. Some people have him going like 30th or 10th, or 15th, 20th. I think maybe I'm a little higher. I think from what I've seen from him, not a good year by any means, but one bad year. We've seen a whole lot of good from him. I don't take away the bad. I don't take away the good just after one bad year from him. I think he has high upside. If I'm OKC, I get Cole Anthony, and then I get Ricky Rubio as well for a veteran point guard to come in and start firsthand as Cole Anthony first off comes off the bench, and then I get a guy like Kelly Oubre Jr. So, and then Phoenix gets a guy like Chris Paul to come in, help them win right away. And then after that, after the top 10, it really is a jungle. It really is a big question mark after the top 10. Even the top 10, honestly, is a big question mark with the 11th overall pick. If the Spurs still hold on to it with the whole trade thing with Atlanta, if they still have that number 11 pick, I say they draft Isaac Okoro from Auburn. That makes sense for me. The Kings, I think they need shooting. Maybe you go Sadiq Bey from Villanova, a very good shooter for what's his name? What's his name for the Kings? The point guard for the Kings? I can't think of his name right now. De'Aaron Fox. Get a guy for De'Aaron Fox to kick it out to in the 3-point at the 3-point arc. Kings need shooting at the 13th overall pick. I'm guessing Golden State would have that from the Pelicans pick if they do end up trading with New Orleans with that pick. Maybe you get Precious Achiuwa from Memphis, a 6'8" power forward center guy to kind of spread the floor, versatile defender as well. So maybe that's who Golden State gets. Maybe the Celtics, they need size. Maybe they trade the 14th or 15th pick, and then a player for cap space and go out and get a guy like Christian Wood. The Blazers at number 16, they need a forward who can defend, also score a little bit. So maybe they go and get a guy like Aaron Naismith from Vanderbilt, who shot 52% from the 3-point line. The Magic at number 15, they need a point guard or shooting guard. Maybe they take a risk on the guy who's up and down all over the draft board in R.J. Hampton. Maybe they take a chance on a guy like Tyrell Terry, who's a very good shooter. The Timberwolves need athleticism, defense, maybe a little bit of shooting. Jalen Smith makes sense from Maryland. The Mavs still searching for a franchise point guard. Maybe Cole Anthony will drop. Maybe Tyrell Terry. Maybe Tyrese Maxey from Kentucky, who's a very good defender but an inconsistent shooter. The Nets need an NBA-ready player, so maybe a guy who can come in and play small minutes, have some impact, like Isaiah Stewart from Washington. Don't forget, though, Wednesday, it's probably not going to go exactly like this, okay? Probably not going to go exactly like this, but I think it will go roughly, the top 10 will be roughly that top 10, I think. There will be a trade for the number 2 overall pick. There will be a trade for the number 6 overall pick. The Knicks might trade the number 8 overall pick. So there will be trades in the top 10. It won't be exactly like this, but I think it will be similar to what I just have laid out for you guys. The draft always brings unexpected moves, though, so who knows what's going to happen on Wednesday night. The bottom half of the draft class is somewhat of a toss-up. I don't think there's a huge difference from number 20 to number 30. So and we're still waiting for definite plans, from Minnesota, from Golden State, from Charlotte for their top 3 overall picks. We don't even know what the top 3 is going to be. So who knows what's going to happen on Wednesday night. I expect a lot of moves. Expect some risks to be taken in this draft as well. That's why I threw Cole Anthony up there at number 10, because who knows what's going to happen. It starts Wednesday at 7, but expect more info to leak as we get closer and closer to that Wednesday date. Again, we're getting closer and closer. Monday is the start of trading being able to take place. Wednesday is the draft. Friday is free agency. So the next week in basketball is going to be huge. And again, I'm looking forward to being here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast, keeping you guys updated. As soon as I know, you guys will know too. Make sure you're checking our Twitter, our Facebook, whatever platform you're listening on. Go leave us a comment or review. That is it for today's episode of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Again, thank you all for your continued support. Go leave us a comment or review. Expect more and more moves to take place as we get closer and closer to the draft, to the start of the season on December 22nd. But again, that's it for this podcast. I'll make sure to keep you guys posted on social media. As for now, though, I'll see you guys on Thursday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.